Some of the most dangerous criminals in the US find themselves wanted by the FBI. No matter how long ago a crime may have been committed, they won't be able to live a normal life until justice has been served. Anyone with information on any of these cases can contact the FBI at 1-800-225-5324. Number 5. One disturbing FBI case involves a man believed to have taken the life of his girlfriend more than 40 years ago. On October 10, 1981, a motorist driving through Norton, Massachusetts on Route 123 came across the body of 21-year-old Robin Shea. She had a single bullet wound to her chest and had been pushed out of a moving vehicle. According to the FBI, that vehicle had been driven by her boyfriend, Andrew Peter Dabbs. Dabbs was 20 years Robin's senior and was already married with 2 children. Robin's family wasn't aware of either of these things, but still didn't get good vibes from him. Then they discovered that he had been physically hurting her, something she tried to keep from them. The FBI believes that the couple had been driving through Norton when Dabbs attacked Robin for the final time. What caused him to commit such a disturbing act, or if there was even a trigger at all, remains unknown. After pushing Robin out of the car, Dabbs carried on driving. By the time her body was found, he had disappeared without a trace. A month after the attack, a state arrest warrant was issued against Dabbs, but police had no idea where he was. The following year, a federal arrest warrant was issued, and the FBI got involved. Today, there's a reward of $20,000 for information leading to Dabbs' arrest. He was 5'10" and 180 pounds at the time of the disappearance, and has skin grafts on his leg from a burn. Authorities believe someone knows where Dabbs is, and they hope that they will allow Robin's family to get justice after all these years. Number 4. Juandios Garza is a dangerous criminal that the FBI has been searching for more than 35 years. Over the years, there has been little publicity in the search for Garza, but his crimes make him a strong candidate for a spot on the most wanted list if he's not found soon. It was October 21st, 1984, when Garza became a wanted man. The crime took place in Belle Glade, Florida. He'd been arguing with a group of men, though the subject of the argument was never made public. At one point, he drew a weapon and attacked 2 of the men that he was arguing with. Ricardo Chavez and his older brother, Juan, were both struck with bullets. Ricardo would pass away. Juan was seriously injured, but managed to make a recovery. The crime didn't remain a mystery for long, though. The January after the crime took place, Garza was identified as the person responsible, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. But by this time, he had already disappeared. The FBI soon joined the investigation into the case. A search of the local area confirmed that Garza was no longer in Belle Glade, and in his arrest warrant it was stated that he might have been in Mexico or Texas. Garza had been born in Mexico, but had spent much of his life living in Mercedes, Texas. He still had family and property there, and he also had connections to 2 other towns in the area. But searches of these locations turned up no clues as to where he may have been. Before long, the case went cold. It didn't get much publicity at the time, and there were few pushes for information in the decades that followed. However, the FBI never closed the case, and in 2017, they confirmed that they were still looking for the criminal. An updated wanted poster was released with age-progressed photos showing what Garza may look like all these years later. There was little additional information about the crime that he had committed. The poster reiterated that he was wanted for taking the life of one man and attempting to take the life of another, as well as unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. It's estimated that Garza was between 5'7" and 6 foot, and weighed between 170 and 200 pounds. He had black hair when he disappeared, but given he would be in his late 60s today, the age progression images show him with graying hair. He should be considered armed and dangerous, and anyone with information should contact their nearest FBI office. Number 3. Cybercrime is one of the biggest growing crimes around the world, and one of the most important ones that the FBI investigates. What makes cybercrime so dangerous is its connections to illegal espionage and organized crime. The consequences often go much deeper than some stolen money, though. In 2018, the US government announced it had identified 2 of the people involved in the APT Ten group. APT Ten, or Advanced Persistent Threat 10, is a group of individuals with ties to the Chinese government. Beginning in at least 2006, the organization has hacked companies and government agencies around the world. This was usually done by the stereotypical method of a malicious email sent to personnel at managed service providers and other companies. The emails were tailored to the specific individual and included malware which would infect their network. The organization also goes by the name Red Apollo and targeted NASA and the US Navy, as well as companies from a variety of other sectors. Hundreds of gigabytes of sensitive data had been stolen, including identifying information about 100,000 people working for the US Navy. Zhu Hua and Zhang Shilong were the 2 individuals identified by the US. Both worked for a technology company that was based in China. Zhu was responsible for registering malware domains, hacking infrastructure, and recruiting new members to the organization. Zhang also registered domains and infrastructure, and tested and developed malware that was used by the group. APT Ten likely includes many other members that may never be identified. The FBI believes that the group works with the Chinese Ministry of State Security. China denies this, but has apparently made little effort to help the US apprehend the hackers. The FBI has little hope of ever capturing members of APT Ten, unless they decide to take a trip to the US in the future, but they do still publicize the case. Number 2. It was almost 40 years ago when a man named William Jr. Jordan disappeared without a trace. The disappearance made him one of the FBI's most wanted criminals. Jordan had been in prison when he vanished, serving a life sentence for taking the life of another man. The initial crime had taken place in 1974. It was a cool March evening in Georgia, and James Rouse Jr. was on his way home from a lecture that he had given at a local college. He stopped in at a hotel to call his wife to let her know he would be home late. It's believed after that he went to the hotel bar where he met Jordan and Anthony Previtt. Unbeknownst to James, Jordan and Previtt were on the run for another crime spree in North Carolina. They were wanted for multiple cases of breaking and entering, and had fled to Georgia in a stolen car. The 3 men left the bar together, and it seems like James had offered them a ride, but then the 2 criminals pulled out weapons and kidnapped James. When he didn't return home, James's family alerted authorities. It would be a few days before his body was discovered. In the meantime, police received a tip that Jordan and Previtt were with a friend. Authorities tried to stake out the house that they were in, but the criminals made their escape. A high-speed chase followed, but eventually the criminals were caught. When James's body was found, police realized the 2 men were responsible. They had forced James out of his car and made him walk through the woods until they came to a lake where they finally took his life. Jordan insisted Previtt had been the one to pull the trigger, but in the end they were both found guilty for taking his life and earned life in prison. Jordan became a model prisoner, and years later, he would be moved to a low-security prison. He was allowed off-site on work details. On August 6, 1984, Jordan was out on one of these jobs picking blueberries at a farm. For some reason, he was given the keys to one of the prison vehicles and sent to a gas station to fill it up, and another prisoner went with him. Much to the guard's surprise, the men didn't return. The other prisoner who had escaped with Jordan was arrested soon after. He said Jordan was headed to his mother's house. By the time police were sent to the house, Jordan had already disappeared. He hasn't been seen since. Today, Jordan would be in his late 70s. According to the officers involved in the case, they believe he may look like a kind old grandpa today, but the FBI warned that he should be considered armed and dangerous. Given how much time has passed, Jordan could be pretty much anywhere, but Virginia and West Virginia were highlighted as possible locations by authorities. Jordan was 6'2" at the time of his disappearance, and the FBI estimates that his weight is at about 135 pounds. He had numerous tattoos, including a skeleton on his right forearm, a spider on his right upper arm, a cross on his left forearm, and Louise on his left leg. Number 1. For years, Thane Allen Smika remained a missing suspect in a disturbing cold case. The crime took place in the 1980s, but it wasn't until 2010 that a warrant for his arrest was issued. By then, Smika had been missing for decades. Thane was a 24-year-old university dropout in 1983 when he answered an ad placed in a local paper by Sid Wells. Sid was a University of Colorado student living in Boulder and looking for an extra roommate for the flat that he shared with his brother Sam. Thane was from a neighboring town, and at first the brothers thought he was trustworthy. After he moved in, they found him to be antisocial, and he would often miss rent payments. He was also believed to be selling illegal substances. August 1st, 1983 was rent day, and Thane was supposed to hand over some money to Sid. Sam Wells was out that day, but came back from a camping trip to find his brother's body on the floor. He had already passed away, and he suffered from a single bullet wound. Sam was in shock, but managed to call police. Thane quickly became a suspect. Police found him at his mother's house and interviewed him there. There, they found the same weapon that had been used to take Sid's life. On October 6th, Thane was arrested for the crime, but the case wouldn't go any further. Prosecutors didn't believe they had enough evidence to convict Thane. He had the same type of weapon that had been used to take Sid's life, and there definitely appeared to be motive, but it wasn't enough to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he had been the person responsible. Sid's family were shocked when Thane was released from custody. They couldn't see who else could have been responsible. Their suspicions seemed to be confirmed when, in 1986, Thane vanished without a trace. His car was found in Beverly Hills, wiped clean of prints, and with a stolen license plate. No trace of Thane has ever been found. In the years after his disappearance, police and the FBI have continued to try to solve the cold case surrounding Sid's passing. With new technology, evidence was re-examined, and in 2010 an arrest warrant was issued. By this point, investigators believed he'd been living under a fake name for 24 years. The FBI still hopes that someone might know where the missing man is today. Thane is described as being 5'11" and weighing 140 pounds. He had a thin frame and brown hair, which may have been sun-bleached golden in color. His FBI file notes that he may have lived in Jalapa, Mexico for years before 2007, and he has connections to California. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.